In this USB-E Instructables installment, you'll learn about Paraeducator standards and general guidelines from the Utah Paraeducator Manual. These modules were developed in collaboration with the Teaching and Learning, Special Education, and Student Advocacy Services departments at the Utah State Board of Education. The term paraeducator can refer to several job titles, including teaching assistant, aide, paraprofessional, and instructor. Schools may use any of these terms to define a paraeducator. In 2015, the Utah Standards for Instructional Paraeducators were approved and adopted by the Utah State Board of Education. These standards define the performance expectations for a paraeducator. They should support instructional opportunities, demonstrate professional and ethical practices, support a positive learning environment, communicate effectively, and participate in the team process. Understanding the roles of a paraeducator and the supervising educator is necessary to be successful in achieving the outlined standards. By working together, these partners support students in accessing the Utah Core Standards, Alternate Achievement Standards, and the Early Childhood Standards. Although working together as an educational team, these respective roles and responsibilities are very different. Direct supervision will always be provided to a paraeducator by a licensed educator. This may include a general education teacher, a psychologist, a social worker, an occupational therapist, a speech and language pathologist, or a physical therapist. They can be assigned to work with students in any grade level, from preschool to post-high. Post-high students range from ages 18 to 22 and receive special education services. Paraeducators may also work and support students in a variety of settings, including a general education classroom, a special education classroom, or a non-instructional setting such as the lunchroom, playground, and hallways. A number of job duties may fall under a paraeducator, such as providing assistance to an individual student or a small group of students when the licensed educator is not available to instruct, helping with organization of materials and activities, keeping the schedule consistent and on time, as well as reinforcing the rules outlined by the supervising educator. Some paraeducators will provide assistance outside of the standard classroom, like in a computer lab. In this setting, they will support students in following computer lab expectations and assist students with technology. Their role might also include providing assistance in the library, supporting students in following library rules and procedures, accessing media materials, and assisting with activities. Parent engagement and involvement activities, such as facilitating parent tutoring, classroom parties or presentations, community nights, and cultural events, may also be duties assigned to paraeducators. Ensuring that students stay on school grounds during recess, sit at their assigned table during lunch, or walk quietly in the hallway are all part of the responsibilities that a paraeducator may provide. Paraeducators are often expected to provide behavior supports, such as reinforcing expectations outlined by the supervising educator. These behavior supports may be general rules for all students or more specific expectations for an individual student. Each paraeducator has a unique job. The supervising educator and school administrator will provide paraeducators with a detailed job description and define the specific job duties for each of their instructional paraeducators, special education paraeducators, job coaches, and non-instructional paraeducators. The role of the supervising educator is to prepare lesson plans and the instructional support activities based on the Utah Core Standards, Alternate Achievement Standards, or the Early Childhood Standards. The paraeducator helps implement the lesson plan and support activities. It is the responsibility of the supervising educator to evaluate the achievement and growth of those students whom the paraeducator is assigned to work with. A paraeducator is not responsible for designing or implementing lesson plans without specific guidance from the supervising educator. The paraeducator will always work under the license of the supervising educator. The supervising educator will help the paraeducator understand the different roles and responsibilities by providing them with job descriptions and clarifications as needed. The supervisor will train or inform the paraeducator of training opportunities to increase their skills and productivity, as well as provide ongoing supervision, direction, and feedback through an evaluation process. Scenario 1. A very busy English teacher would like the paraeducator to independently create and deliver a vocabulary lesson. How should you, as the paraeducator, respond? Should you create a lesson plan even though you know you're not responsible or qualified to do so independently? Complain to the principal that the teacher is asking you to work beyond your job description? Or explain to the teacher that you are prepared to deliver the lesson plan but not responsible for independently creating the lesson plan. This scenario is difficult because the paraeducator does not want to be insubordinate by not doing what the supervising teacher is asking, but the teacher is asking the paraeducator to do something that is unethical. The paraeducator is not responsible to design or implement lesson plans without specific guidance from the supervising educator. An important requirement in working with students is maintaining confidentiality about the student and their academic and behavioral performance. Confidentiality is defined as the state of keeping or being kept secret or private. As indicated in Standard 2, a paraeducator must respect confidentiality in his or her professional and ethical practice. Discretion is an important aspect of respecting student confidentiality. Paraeducators must understand what student information can and can't be shared. A paraeducator can share that a student's favorite color is blue. On the other hand, a paraeducator must understand that there is information that cannot be shared. For example, the paraeducator cannot share that the student was sent to the principal's office for breaking the rules in the classroom. Everyone working with students must respect confidentiality. A licensed educator will also practice discretion regarding what student information is relevant, necessary, and appropriate to share with a paraeducator. Established in November 1974, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, became a federal law that protects the privacy of student educational records. Personally identifiable information, or PII, is confidential. This personal information includes a student's name, parents' names, address, social security numbers, personal characteristics, and other information that makes the student easily identifiable. Report cards, transcripts, and discipline records should not be shared. Medical needs and services a student receives are also confidential, as is the status of being in a special education class. School records may only be released with parental consent. Written consent must first be obtained before students' special education records are released. Schools must notify the parents before they disclose any information about a student. Scenario 2. Juan's mom wants to send all the kids in his class an electronic invitation to his birthday party. She asks the paraeducator for a list of all parents' email addresses. How do you think the paraeducator should respond? Would you provide a class email list to the parent making the request? Politely explain to the parent that student information is confidential and refer to the teacher or office staff if there are further questions. Or ask students if they want to go to the party and then collect their phone numbers. In this scenario, it would be appropriate to explain to the parent that student information is confidential and refer them to the teacher if the parent has further questions. Paraeducators cannot discuss any part of a student's confidential information with work colleagues who are not directly involved with the student. This information includes behavior and academic performance, family or home circumstances, and any special services or accommodation the student may be receiving. It is natural to want to share the challenges and rewards of the job with friends and family, but this must not include specific student information. If speaking to a supervising educator regarding a student, it is important to always be aware of the surroundings and avoid conversations in public areas such as the hallway or faculty room. Scenario 3. Bree's father asked the paraeducator if they think another child in the class has ADHD. What should the paraeducator do? How could the paraeducator respond without breaking confidentiality or FERPA? Should the paraeducator give a lengthy explanation about the student's medical diagnosis and need for medication? Respond by saying, "I can't discuss that student's information." Or ask the parent if he thinks the student has ADHD because you've wondered the same thing. In this situation, the paraeducator does not need to give a lengthy explanation. The question can be answered respectfully without breaking confidentiality. The Utah Standards for Instructional Paraeducators helps define the role of paraeducators in the classroom. While a paraeducator and supervising educator have different roles and responsibilities, they both must protect the privacy rights of students. A paraeducator's role is to support the teacher, the classroom, and the students in educational setting throughout the state of Utah.